Hey everyone, and welcome to Cooking Companion TV. I'm Jenna Edwards, and this is a recipe demo of chuli biek, or an entire meal of literally wrapped up in a pastry parcel. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. From the name, you may have guessed this is French, an obscure French something or another, but it's originally Russian. The famous French Escoffier developed this version, and Julia Child also has her own anglicized version. I'm following a recipe from foodandwine.com. So there is some preparation involved. We first need cooked rice that has been cooled down. If you try to use hot or warm rice, it will start melting or cooking your phyllo dough. So plan that a couple hours ahead to give it plenty of time to cool off. I also need to cook my mushrooms. Amongst the recipes online, you'll find a variety of fillings. I'm choosing mushrooms and greens in addition to the standard fish and rice. To give as much flavor as possible to the mushrooms, I'm using olive oil from Comfy Garlic, so it's a very garlicky oil. And I'll let the mushrooms brown in the pan to give them even more flavor. So I'm using a pan on medium-low heat, so once the mushrooms make it into the pan, you don't move them for several minutes so they can get a good browning on that one side. That intensifies the flavor of mushrooms. If you're doing a full recipe, we'll be making a layered loaf that measures 4 inches wide and 9 inches long. It also helps to measure some part of your hand, so you always have a measurement indicator nearby. I use the end of my pinky finger to roughly measure 1 inch. You may need to trim your fish to meet these measurements. Now remove the skin on the fish. You need a super sharp knife, preferably a serrated knife, or have the fishmonger remove it for you. Now check your mushrooms and slice a couple cloves of garlic for the greens. When you remove your mushrooms, add another tablespoon of oil to the pan, and then add your greens, about 8 ounces of fresh or frozen greens. I'm using frozen spinach, so I've given it a solid day to fully thaw out, and I've squeezed out the extra water. Season with the garlic and a pinch of salt. While those flavors cook together, take your cooled and cooked rice and stir in 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. You'll also want to squeeze out a couple tablespoons of lemon juice for a sauce later on. And season the rice with a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and remove the greens from the pan. If you still see any juice in your greens, just let it cool and squeeze it out some more. Now we season the fish. In old recipes, seasoning fish meant salt, pepper, and finely minced shallot. So let's finely mince a shallot with narrow slices lengthwise, and then horizontal slices for evenly tiny pieces. Remove extra moisture from the fish and sprinkle with salt and pepper. Now you might as well stir together the shallots and 2 tablespoons of grainy mustard, because trying to spread them on separately is a waste of time. They end up mixed together anyway. Regardless, make sure the top of the fish is generously covered and set it aside. Now we work the phyllo dough. This is a touch tedious. You can see I've been melting butter, about 1/3 of a cup of it. And I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper ready for the phyllo. When you have the stack of phyllo sheets out of the packaging, you need a damp cloth laid on top of the unused stack as you butter your sheets so they don't dry out, which happens fairly quickly. As you lightly brush on the butter, start with the corners and the edges, as that's the first part to dry out. So start on the outside and work your way in. And then layer on another sheet, carefully and as evenly as possible, and lightly butter it too, from the outside in. You'll do 6 layers like this. And separately, you'll do another 4 layers, that's gonna be the top of your loaf, and cover them so they don't dry out while you assemble the loaf. Now for the layering of the ingredients, we'll start with the rice. So choose the middlemost point in the phyllo dough and use your hands to place a 9 by 4 inch rectangle of rice. Push it down if you can so it's more compact. It should be about 3/4 of an inch thick so it maintains some body. You can do up to 1 inch of rice, but it could feel like too much. This is leftover Thai rice, and I don't think it shrank as much as a long grain white rice might have. Anyway, that's your foundation. Now, unfortunately, I had a filming blunder and I didn't get to film how I placed the fish and the mushrooms next, but I think you get the idea. The fish should fit literally right on top of the rice with the mustard and the shallots on top if we have measured everything correctly. And then you spread on the cooked mushrooms, just exactly on top of the fish, and then the greens. I'll try to tighten up the loaf once everything is in place, just making sure that all the edges are really even. Now, gently peel the buttered phyllo off the parchment paper and fold it around the sides of the loaf. You will need to fold it around the corners like a little present or an envelope. It should still be pliable and sticky from the butter, and it should stay in place. And now grab that second stack of the 4 buttered phyllo sheets. I forgot to butter mine, so they're dry. It worked just fine if that happens to you too. And you top your loaf with them, folding the corners as needed and tucking in the edges under the loaf as needed. I brushed butter on top of the loaf instead, so it would all stick together like it's supposed to. Now take 5 more phyllo sheets that are not buttered, scrunching them up and making a nice little fluff on top of the loaf. It reminds me of arranging tissue paper for gift wrapping and that kind of thing. Now, if you can keep it tall and fluffy, it makes the prettiest photos. This is a very photogenic dish. If you have any butter left, which you should, about 2 tablespoons, you'll drizzle it over the top. Now bake for about 3 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius, stopping after the first 15 minutes to top the loaf with aluminum foil to prevent over browning of the phyllo dough, but you do want a little bit of browning. It's done when a thermometer in the side of the loaf reads at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit. As it cools, you can whisk up a tangy sauce to serve under, like a nice little swipe on the plate right under the slice. And definitely do this because it works so well with all the ingredients. The recipe I used called for creme fraiche, dill, capers, and lemon juice. I didn't actually make that sauce. I just whisked together some sour cream, lemon juice, and capers. Use a serrated knife to make 1.5 inch slices for 6 servings. This was super tasty, just like bursting with flavor. It's a very traditional recipe, would call for making pastry dough to wrap up the loaf. I think you can have a lot of fun playing with making smaller parcels for appetizers or mixing up the different types of fish and other ingredients. You don't have to always use salmon. It's a very impressive plate, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It was really fun to make, even though it was a lot of work. That's it for this recipe demo of chuli biak. Get the ingredient list below or at cookingcompaniontv.com/fishloaf. I'm not gonna try to make you make you spell chuli biak. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe to this channel for more demos just like this. I'm Jenna Edwards, and thanks for watching.